All right, y'all. Now, before we get into the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City review today, we have got to get the reaction from Adam from Up and Adam on this Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 1 trailer that just premiered. The show will be airing November 18th on Peacock TV. So, because it just aired, we got to discuss a little bit of it before we get into the episode from Salt Lake City for last night. So get on in this good chatterization. Let us know if you happen to catch it. And if you didn't, don't worry. We're going to fill you all in. And here we are, like the best workouts with a 2-a-day. And you got two of us going into this review for the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. But before we do that, we got to discuss the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 1 trailer that just came out today. Adam, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is always fun. And last week we missed it, so I'm excited.
Yes, last week I was stuck in LA. It was the worst ever. Listen, Delta, I still got issues with them, but we're not going to get into that. Let's talk about this trailer before we get into Salt Lake City. I would like your thoughts overall on it. And are you excited about it? Like, how do you feel about this trailer?
Okay, so I keep flip-flopping because I feel like a trailer is super important to kind of catch our eye and get the audience in, the fans excited. And for this trailer, I was looking at it and I'm like, this is a challenge because they had 8-9 days, right, to film this. And they did it kind of Big Brother style. I don't know. I really don't know. These are a lot of strong housewife players, but I don't know if I'm into it. The trailer at least did not grab my attention.
It's interesting. The trailer to me, I feel like I've seen better trailers for shows. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Now, I will say that because we know that, Potomac will be ending probably around the same time that this premieres. So we'll only have Salt Lake City on that we know of. We haven't gotten a trailer. I'm hearing that OC could be pushed up and Jersey could be pushed back. So I don't know what's going to be happening outside of Salt Lake City being on. So, and we won't have Atlanta. So to me, this is kind of like, okay, well, we'll give you guys this to tide you over until the next big franchise comes out. But from what we see here in the trailer, it looks like it's just more of the Ramona coaster.
Yes.
Ramona upsetting the girls, Ramona peeing in her pants, telling Kenya to F off. It seems like there's more of that. But I will say it was interesting kind of seeing the dynamic between Kenya and Cynthia because we very rarely see Cynthia have to kind of try to school Kenya in any way, shape, or form.
Right. But they also have a very strong dynamic because we've seen them on so many ups and downs throughout their seasons on the show. So honestly, I'm interested in that. And I'm interested to see what goes wrong between Kenya and Ramona. Otherwise, listen, I've seen some really great movies with some really bad trailers. Like you said, we don't have much left. We have Salt Lake City after Potomac is over. We know that we're getting Real Housewives of Orange County, but I think it's December 1st now. But one question I do have when it comes to this Peacock, new spinoff, Ultimate Girls Trip, how many episodes is it going to be? Is it going to be like 6 or is there an episode for every day?
I'm hearing it's going to be 6 to 7 or 8 episodes. And then from what I could gather on Peacock TV, it looks as though it will air on Thursdays. So okay. I'm assuming we'll get one per week, which I think is probably the best at this route. Because again, it gives us a week to digest it and review it and move on to the next one versus trying to review an entire season. I hope that they never do that for Housewives. I think it does work for Bling Empire and those Netflix shows, but I prefer my Housewives on a weekly basis.
Yes, I agree with you on that. But also, I kind of feel like, Mondays are a lot for us because we have Potomac and Salt Lake City back to back. I'm not going to mind the break. Just like when Salt Lake City, like season 1 went off, we're not going to mind having to watch this episode at 10 p.m. You know?
Honestly, I can tell you the truth, Adam. I'm looking forward to that little bit of a break. And I think that having a show come out on a Thursday is kind of exciting to me, because I typically don't have anything to review as the week goes on. So I'm actually looking forward to that and sort of seeing what it brings. I'm also wondering if, because Kyle brings Mauricio on this trip, because I think that it is his place or his company is doing the rental. I'm not sure, but I wonder if that's going to cause a rift in any of the relationships because none of the other men are there as well.
Right. And we've seen this before on Housewives, when women bring their kids, when they bring their spouses. We've seen it on Potomac numerous times. We've seen it in Atlanta. I believe we've even seen it on Beverly Hills, and I even think Orange County. But yes, I am curious. This is his listing, right? You said?
I think it's his listing. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously he would have more of a reason than anyone else's person to show up. But obviously somebody is going to, these are veteran housewives. They're going to have in their mind, oh, okay, she brought her man here. We didn't get to bring our men. So storyline, here we go.
And it'll be also interesting because as I watched, I was like, why are we rehashing the Melissa and Teresa drama from like 8 years ago? Why? Why are we still discussing this?
I feel like someone dug into it because I think that they probably, for the most part, I don't want to speak on behalf of all of them because I don't think Lisa, my old boss, Vanderpump, used to watch any of the Housewives, but you would think if they're going into this filming together that they would probably know like the most iconic moments for each one. And they're like, okay, what do we talk to Melissa and Teresa about? They're always feuding. Maybe this is it. So let's bring this up and see if we can't get a moment. Okay. I'm thinking like a producer.
Okay. That's good because, it does give us context as to maybe why we're actually still discussing this years later.
Yes.
Like it's time to move on, people, in my mind. That's what I'm thinking. So let's move on. Oh, we had a good question here from Braxton Hughes, who says, I wonder why they only film for 8 days. And I think it probably goes, to this idea that it is a vacation. So, it's probably cheaper to film. I think that because it's on a streaming service, you probably don't have the same budget that you would for the major network. So 8 days is probably good enough time. And when you think about it, when we get these trips on Housewives shows, they can span from like a good 3 to 4 episodes during the season. So I think that this is the perfect amount of time to have these women away together and at each other's throats. What do you think?
Yeah, to piggyback off of what you're saying, we only get 3 episodes of an hour long, but they were on a trip for 5 days. I'm sure they condense it because they have so much other content from the rest of the season. Whereas for All Stars, the whole thing is a vacation, right? So I think it'll be easy for them to squeeze out, like you said, 6 to 7, maybe 8 episodes, especially because cameras are on 24/7. So they're going to catch every single moment. It's not like the women really get a break from filming. Even Kyle Richards just said that. She said, this was the most exhausting project I've ever been a part of because we could not stop.
I am actually excited about it. I think the more we talk about it, I think the more excited I get about it. So I'm definitely going to be watching, but let us know in the chat if you will be watching. Okay?
Yes.
So let's get into the episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We are in season 2. This is episode 5, Jen and Barrett. Right off the rip, we're going to rate the episode. Let me know in the chatterization, guys, what you would give this episode on a scale of 1 to 10. Y'all know how we do it. And Adam, you're up first. What would you rate this episode?
A 6. A 6.
Tell us why.
I'm getting a little kind of like anxious and impatient when it's coming to Salt Lake City right now because I don't know what the timeline was specifically when they started filming as to when Jen Shah was actually arrested. But on Beverly Hills, I believe the whole Girardi scandal started surfacing as soon as they started filming. So that's why we got it sooner, like episode 3 or 4. But now we're going into episode 6 and we're like, okay, when are we going to introduce this scandal? But I almost wonder, And I wanted to ask you this too, because I was thinking about this when watching the episode. Do you think they're trying to get out some of like the little storylines, like Lisa and Whitney and Jen and Brooks, and get that out of the way to have this kind of like the calm before the storm, and we know it's all going to be focused on Jen Shaw?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because this was probably what they had to go on, as they began filming season 6. I ran across a page last night on Bravo. It was a Bravo fan account on Instagram, and I'm going to see if I saved it. And I'm going to point it out to you guys because they did this interesting timeline of the season thus far, and they based it on the nails of Jen Shaw and Whitney Rose. And they just pointed out, I'm going to pull it up right now. They just basically, they pointed, it was so good. And I want you guys to see it. They pointed out the way the timeline seemed to jump around for these past couple of episodes. And the conclusion that they came to was that the stuff with Angie and the party with Angie really happened, or seemingly happened, at the beginning of the season. And so many other scenes were kind of cut and paste and interwoven in between all of that. So to me, as I was watching last night, I felt as though the season sort of felt a little all over the place to me. And as you guys can see, they go episode by episode, with showing photo evidence of Jen and Whitney's nails. And at the end of it, they kind of go through and they give us the verdict of the timeline. And they say that Casino Night obviously had to film before ice fishing. So Meredith had been with Jen at Casino Night and ice fishing, and that was not the first time that they saw each other. The same for Whitney, Heather, and Lisa. So then they said the first thing of the season with Lisa and Jen getting together at Jen's house was filmed after Casino Night and after when Lisa and Jennie came over to Jen's for their scene shown in episode 2. So what I wanted to say to you guys is, really follow some of these accounts because they really will go into the deep dive of, things that we may be missing or things that we may be feeling about the episodes. And I just thought that this was just such an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Had you seen this before?
So I briefly saw it this morning, and I didn't actually read through all of it, but it's so interesting to me because when you have these different reality shows that have such super fan, kind of eyes on them, this is one of those things where who would have caught this? But you can't get past the fans of TLC, Bravo. Like, these fans are insane, and insane in a great way. I'm not saying like bad insane. Like, it's crazy the attention to detail that they have. And it just goes to show how editing and production plays a huge role in how we perceive these shows.
Yep. And we got a super chat here from JMW who says, love y'all two together. I watch both of y'all daily. Much love. Thank you, JMW, for the love.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. So I'm going to get into what I would rate the episode because for me, I was actually going to give it a 6 initially. But then I was like, no, I'm going to give it a 5.
Okay.
And this is new for me. I'm typically a little bit more generous. And the reason I gave it a 5 is because I noticed as I was watching that I was scrolling through Instagram. My attention kept being diverted elsewhere, so much so that I think I missed large chunks of several conversations, but we'll discuss those as we go along. The first thing that we see is Lisa and John recapping the Angie setup. Okay. Now, in my video last week that I did when I was stranded in LA because of Delta, I asked the question if they were trying to paint Lisa Barlow as the new LVP. That was my question because the way Whitney and Angie kind of came together made it seem as though Lisa was this big bad person who was scheming behind the scenes to ensure that Angie's event did not have catering because she was upset at Angie for claiming Whitney as her cousin because they share the same great grandfather. What did you think of all of that? Because it later came out that the caterers just chose not to do the event because it wasn't going to be shown on TV.
Okay. So I feel like this was a moment that, at first I thought Lisa Barlow was in the wrong here, and I wanted so bad to believe that, and I have no idea why. But I wanted to believe that she was the bad guy in this story. And now rewatching it back, I feel like Angie Harrington, we know that season 1 came with 2 different production teams, and Mary Cosby was originally a friend. Then the second production team that picked it up made her full-time. Well, we heard Angie Harrington originally was a friend or full-time. She was filming, and they decided to cut her out completely. So I'm wondering if going into this season, she's kind of pre-producing a storyline and thinking in her mind, I'm going to go in here. I know Lisa Barlow the best. I'm going to fight with her. This is going to be easy because I already know that her and Whitney don't get along, and Whitney and I just so happen to be related in some crazy effed up world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think that's kind of what has come out of this situation, is that based on the text messages that have surfaced between, I guess Angie and the caterers, at least from their perspective, it seems as though Angie was maybe trying a little bit too hard to have a moment with Lisa, which is unfortunate because, as Lisa says in this scene right here, they are friends of 24 years.
But we've seen this before. That means nothing in the Housewives world. Lisa Rinna and Denise, Lisa Barlow, Angie Harrington. We've seen it on New York. Friends don't mean anything to a housewife.
That is wild to me. That is so wild. Like, I have turned down things because I would not want it to put me in a negative position with any of my friends. I just think that, these relationships that you have, they will go beyond these shows.
Right.
And you've got to really remember that. Lisa feels like Whitney is happy to take her friend away. And then John suggests that a conversation should be had with Whitney, which it's going to lead to in a minute. We see Mary going to visit Whitney, and I know you're not a fan of Mary, but to me, Mary makes a lot of sense when she's giving these women advice. And I think she reads them accurately.
I don't disagree with that.
In this scene, we basically get, Whitney is sort of confiding in Mary about her issues because Mary wants to know what the tea is about, with the whole Lisa and Angie and Whitney situation. And Mary basically tells her, listen, obviously you want to be her friend, because if you didn't want to be her friend, this whole thing wouldn't bother you so much.
Honestly, I thought that was great advice because it's true. If you think about it, when you are really stewing on someone, you want to get to them. If you can't get to them, you try to kind of find them on social media, watch what they're doing. It's kind of strange. It becomes an obsession. But like Mary said, you have to question, why are you having this obsession? I actually thought she gave really great advice. But one thing that kind of spooked me a little bit in this episode with Mary was, and this could be editing, but it was the way she talked about her friend, or her, not friend, a member of the congregation's, was it their daughter?
It was something to that effect. It was a very Erica Jane story. I mean,
oh my gosh, I didn't think of it like that.
And she told it in front of Whitney's kids. Now, I get it. If it really happened, it really happened. Apparently, for those of you guys who missed it, Mary she gets there and she immediately goes into the story about how, I guess, somebody at her church, the child was in a car without a seatbelt, got thrown from the car and died. And then she's just like, but I'm excited to be here. Wear your seatbelt. It was the oddest Erica Jane story. I mean, just about as odd as Erica Jane's Tom story to me.
I mean, the story was, but it actually kind of, watching it, I have to say, it frustrated me a little bit. And I talked about this earlier, but I had a friend who, when I lived in Tennessee, the mountains didn't have guardrails, right? Well, my friend's mom just got out of jail and she picked her up from school drunk. And we were in 8th or 9th grade. And when she picked her up, she picked up her daughter and then her 2 other sons, because the elementary school, high school, middle school were all on the same grounds. And she drove through a red light and got side blinded. And when she did, all of the kids went out of the back windshield and it cut the one girl in half. And it was the most tragic thing that happened to our small town. So when she's saying this so nonchalantly, like ejected, it like just admit, especially when it's your congregation, there's something that just feels off. That's all. It's weird.
You are absolutely correct. It was the strangest thing. And I'm shocked that Andy didn't ask her about that on Watch What Happens Live, but I think maybe there was so much else to cover.
Yeah.
Which I thought she was funny on Watch What Happens Live. Her and Ashley to make a great little duo, if anybody happened to catch that.
I think she was the most comfortable, honestly, so far when it comes to all of the Salt Lake City women who have been on Watch What Happens Live, because Heather Gay was so uncomfortable. Meredith Marks was okay, but she had the support of her son there. And then Whitney was incredibly uncomfortable. Mary really did it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing that I like about her is oftentimes I think that she may stick her foot in her mouth, but at least I feel like she's being honest about how she feels, and it's unfiltered.
I agree.
You know, and hopefully it never goes in the Brandi Glanville direction. And I say that respectfully.
Well, she does good with kind of like Brandi Glanville was literally like a kind of garbage can mouth of being like, here's everything, and I'm just going to be so unfiltered because I want the shock factor. Right. Whereas Mary at least has the ability to kind of go like this. She goes, that's all I have to say. It's like, okay, we get it, which is so much better than having a garbage can mouth.
I love it when Adam is shady but classy at the same time. Heather's daughter gets into the college of her choice. Yay. Anything you got to say?
Well, I mean, that's honestly, that is kind of a big thing because she applied from out of state. So I applaud her, but I thought it was weird. You know, Heather Gay, there's so many conversations. Parents are so different across the board. And Heather obviously grew up with this lifestyle where she was preserved and protected and made sure that she wasn't doing anything bad and had to lead by the Mormon church, right? Or follow by the Mormon church. And for her daughter, I get that she wants her daughter to kind of go out there and wild out and just be crazy and be the good time girl, but have those conversations in private, because your daughter's going to show up to UC Santa Barbara and everyone's going to look at her like, oh, she's ready. She's ready. I saw her on that show. You know, and it makes her it puts off the wrong impression. Like does it? Or am I just crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I mean, with that statement, I think it's probably an accurate assessment. I just feel like for me, the Heather scenes last night, those were the scenes that I blanked out on. And I don't know why. I like Heather.
Well, because you rated it a 5, because I think the episode, there was nothing really like in the previews coming up for the next, after the break or anything like that. There was nothing that was like, oh, this is about to get crazy. Like Potomac right now, thank goodness, is giving that on Sunday nights. Like, thankfully, Potomac is carrying us through. But then now Salt Lake City, they're not taking us to the finish. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not getting us to watch what happens live. Now we're having to watch that the next day.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I felt like it did not give me the same excitement factor as last season, but okay. Jen finally gets on Brooks's schedule to apologize him. Meredith accompanies him to this meetup. And Brooks is like, no, Ma, I got this. You go sit over there. So Meredith is sitting perched off at the bar, kind of hovering on her phone, but she still got one ear on the conversation in case it goes left. And, in this conversation, I'll just jump right to the point. As Jen first started talking, I felt like she was kind of skating around like she typically does. I don't run my social media if what I said hurt you. But then as he spoke, I thought it was just such a great conversation because I felt like he seemed very humble in his approach to her, very honest about what it did to him, about taking away his voice before he got a chance to speak on whatever it is that he is going to eventually, however he chooses to express his love and who that ends up being for. I just thought it was, when she apologized to him and Meredith, it felt genuine to me. What were your thoughts?
Okay, so a couple thoughts here. One, I love that Jen is leading with this. Somebody else ran my Twitter account, which obviously could be true, I obviously, because people do have social media managers, but there's really no accountability here. But we've seen that before. It's kind of why do you want me to apologize? What did I do? But we're all watching like, come on, it's really hard for you to lead with this foot. But for Brooks, I was impressed by the conversation and him just saying, you know, I don't even have the ability to articulate how this made me feel. And he was just very like, just kind of, I would be shaking. I wouldn't want to sit across the table and be like, you wronged me, Jen Shah, because you know that she has the ability to kind of get excited and passionate, and all of a sudden the whole mood changes. And I did think it was funny that he pushed Meredith off to the side and is like, can we have this conversation? But you see her and she's like fake texting like this. I was like, oh gosh.
Knowing good and well she was listening to the entire thing. But it finally happened. They had their conversation. They had their ponderosa. And thankfully, hopefully, this situation never comes up again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing that I will say that I did like is she actually apologized to him for flashing her with JJ.
Yeah, her Gigi.
I thought that was cool. It felt grown up to me for her. Let's see. It's guys' night out. And the most interesting thing that came out of this to me, and I'm going to let you speak about what you thought. We have Seth, who is Meredith's husband. We have Sharif, who is Jen Shah's husband. We have John, who is Lisa Barlow's husband. And then we have, who else was there? Who else was it?
Wait, Justin.
Justin, who is Whitney's husband. Okay, great.
Yes.
So the interesting things about this were two things. John and Justin, who are Whitney and Lisa's husbands, really want to get along. The other interesting thing for me was seeing Seth in his confessional where the Brooks Marks blazer snap combination. I just thought it was horrible with that V-neck he had on. I feel like if you're going to do something like that, it needs to be just have your bare chest out, or either a white button-up shirt, button all the way up to the top, or a black shirt. Like, leave the teal or the green or whatever color. It was just all wrong to me, and it just bothered me. That's all I got for you.
How do you really feel about it? You're like, that's it? It bothered me.
It just bothered me. Like, I don't feel like it's a bad look. I just feel like I think that's a look to wear with your chest out.
Right. Well, and also I feel like Brooks should have, since that was his clothing line, should have taken more control. And if that was his control, then okay, then all right. Then I'm not going to throw any shade at him. But, you know, this whole guys' night thing threw me off a little bit. And I'm wondering, you know how on Real Housewives of Atlanta and Real Housewives of New Jersey, we always had like a great group of guys that when they would get together, we were just as interested in watching. I think Salt Lake City is trying to get there. But what they're like kind of forgetting is, especially with Jersey, all of these people knew each other for a long time. They had experiences together because they're a close-knit Italian family or families that grew up around each other. These guys don't know each other. So we're not getting the same excitement because it's not the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what happens with Potomac, Jersey, and even Married to Medicine is there's usually some guy in the group that is willing to get just a bit inappropriate. And so it usually makes the dynamic a little bit more interesting.
Right.
To me, there was nothing that really took me any place outside of my offense at the way that Seth wore that blazer. That was it.
That's it for you. Call it a day.
There was Whitney meeting up with Jennie. Okay. It's interesting because, you know, Whitney is talking to Jennie about, you know, building her brand. You know, she just bought her business partner out for her beauty products. And, you know, she's really building because she has spent a lot of time, I guess, maybe, you know, being a mom. And for Jennie, it's the exact opposite, where Jennie has sold 4 of her medical, I guess she said clinics, but she's only kept 1 because she wanted to spend more time with their kids. So they're kind of in a little bit of an opposite situation there. But the biggest portion to me of this conversation was, you know, Whitney wanting to talk to Jennie about, you know, Lisa Barlow. And, you know, Jennie is like 1,000% team Lisa Barlow in this, and tries to convince Whitney that Lisa is a good girl. Like, she is a great person to know, you know, and everybody loves her. And Whitney says that she keeps hearing this, but she's not seeing it. Any thoughts about this conversation?
Yeah, I respect Jennie because she's coming into this conversation and she's defending her friend, but she's not being one of those housewives that come off extremely closed off to being open to the person that their friend is fighting with. They want to form their own opinion. You know, for example, like Giselle and Robin, how Giselle feels, Robin feels. So if Giselle's fighting with you, Robin's going to be fighting with you. And over here, we see Lisa and Whitney don't get along, but Jennie is independent enough and strong enough to kind of make her own assessment. And I thought that was great. And, you know, watching them kind of bond over the family situations, especially because their families, it's so opposite. Like Jennie doesn't want kids, Whitney wants kids. You know what I mean? And they're kind of in a reverse situation. It's nice to hear these storylines because I'm thinking about it from a viewer perspective of like women out there who might be going through similar things and they get to see something else other than sobriety or infidelity. You know, it's like more, it's adding more structure, dynamic, I guess.
Very true. Very true. We get Heather and Meredith going skiing and getting Irish coffee and charcuterie. They get into a discussion about their kids going to college and having, you know, talks with their kids about the birds and the bees. Again, I started scrolling through Instagram. Was there anything that we missed in this conversation? Listen, I think it could be a valid conversation again, because like, as you stated earlier, there could, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of moms who are watching this and they're about to send their kids off to college. And so watching these conversations happen, I'm sure is very interesting. I just think that for me, it was like, okay, is Watch What Happens Live? When is that coming on? Like, that's what I was thinking.
Exactly. No, there wasn't really any big takeaway from this conversation, but if anything, again, it just goes back to the fact that Heather Gay is so openly having this conversation with her daughter, which I don't know if it's respectful or disrespectful because her daughter's about to be an adult, but she knows how her husband feels and how he's still so involved and immersed into that Mormon community and culture. So obviously people in Salt Lake City will see this and they'll know because it's such a tight-knit community that this is his daughter, which how does that make him look? But I just also think Heather doesn't care. I don't know. This is a tricky conversation. There's not a lot to it, but if you're thinking about it from his perspective and not just us who doesn't, you know, we don't care about the conversation, I'm thinking, oh, is she making him look like a joke in the church? I don't know. I'm curious.
Now, that to me is a far more fascinating conversation than the one I feel like played out on the screen last night.
Exactly.
Just saying. Oh, I will say one other thing that I did like about this episode that I typically wouldn't like, and it is a slight bit of fashion. I did appreciate Jen's outfit when she sat down to meet up with Brooks. There was a lot of Gucci, a lot of label, and I typically don't always like that, but she just put it together in such an interesting way. I was like, I think I'm here for that.
I don't think I've seen one bad Jen Shah look, to be honest with you.
She does tend to put it together well, which I don't know how I should feel about that, because if the allegations are true, then it's with people's money that she shouldn't probably have. So I don't know, but she does know how to pull together a look. She always looks good. Right.
Yeah. We have to give that to her. If anything, I haven't seen her look bad. Not even when she's crying, she still has it together.
Dressed. I mean, she's definitely got the style thing going on, and it doesn't seem like she over relies on that like a Dorit. Okay, Lisa and Whitney finally have their sit down, and they do it over gin and apple pies. Okay, not a combination I would have guessed, but looks good to me. Okay. This is their first time ever meeting up alone, we learn, in the time that they have been filming. Now, that's interesting to me because, as we all know, they were filming the show for quite some time before they got to the actual first season. Like, you know, because as you stated, they had the previous production company, and then they had the company that came in afterwards. So that must have equated to quite a bit of filming. And it's also interesting that Lisa, as we know, seemed to put together most of the cast. So it's very odd to me that they've never had at least one sit down before.
I actually never really thought about that. Honestly, I've never. First of all, you just kind of threw me off because when you mentioned the gin and apple pie and then the Irish coffees and charcuterie, I'm like, these are the weirdest combinations I've ever heard of. So you kind of threw me off, but I really never thought about why wouldn't they have had that conversation. But Lisa and Meredith kind of stuck together like a Robin and Giselle too. That's another Robin and Giselle reference. They stuck together last season, season 1, and they've kind of branched away from each other this season. So maybe we will see more of those independent conversations. We also see a one-on-one with Lisa and one of Mary Cosby's family members or someone from the congregation. I forgot which part it was, but honestly, if you watch YouTube, you feel like it's all of her family members who are coming out and saying stuff, but some of the congregation is too. Just saying, no shade, no shade.
You're right. You're right about that. It was just interesting to me that they hadn't had any sit down before. Like nobody had ever thought maybe you guys should get together at some point. I don't know. But when they do sit down, I feel like Lisa is kind of like, on the, I'm just willing to play nice and figure this thing out. And Whitney is like, no, girl, I'm going to call you out on everything that I feel like you've done to me. And I want to know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind it because, I felt like if you feel like this, like, let's come into the table and bring it all out on the table. And there are some points that she makes that I felt like she had valid points on. But I also think that there are some things I don't necessarily know that it is just that Lisa doesn't like her as much as maybe Lisa is just busy in her own world.
Yeah, but she doesn't treat all of the other women like that. I think that it's a young, maybe it's like an age gap. I'm not quite sure what the whole reason for their dynamic is. I can't get it out. But for Whitney, I have to applaud her the way that she approached that conversation because Lisa Barlow just wanted to kind of dismiss it. She's like, I don't want to be a storyline. I don't want to fight with you. Let's just move on. Really in her head, she's like, I don't like you. You don't like me. That's fine. But we can at least squash this so it's not talked about. Right. And Whitney was like, no. She's like, don't you think, I consider you a friend? She's like, I think that's garbage. No, you don't. Because the way you treat me and talk to me is also garbage. So I applaud Whitney here. I applaud her, but I am curious, and I know you're going to get to it, but when they showed the preview for next season, I'm curious how this was like a 2-second friendship.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, what we got from this conversation is that the two of these ladies are going to, I guess, try to put their best foot forward and try to move forward. And again, I talk about this a lot on the channel. We love the conflict, but we also love a resolution. That's what makes these shows interesting and good, and it makes us want to stick around. And when it becomes a situation where they can never get past the issue, where it becomes so deep, it then becomes toxic, and it becomes toxic for us to talk about, and then it becomes toxic for you guys to comment on. But interestingly enough, the preview for next week, it shows as soon as the two of them, Lisa and Whitney, and then their husbands go out for dinner, something happens to the point where Whitney feels like, because of the restaurant they were at, that she was being set up. And I wonder if it is the restaurant of the caterers who backed out of Angie's event.
100%. Yes, it's actually genius because she's going to be like, what was his name? Do we remember the caterer's name? Let's just say
Marco, and I cannot remember the other person.
Okay, so
I think it's Marco. A couple of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, so if it's their business, obviously they had to get a waiver. Again, sorry, I can't help but think like this. They had to get a waiver.
No, go ahead and tell it.
Yeah, then I feel like they would know that they're filming in their restaurant and it's being featured. So then they would show up and greet Lisa because honestly, that's what LVP would do if you were somebody coming in to film to her restaurant. And they would come out and greet Lisa, and then she'd be like, oh, hey, Marco. And Whitney's going to be like, oh my God, that's the caterers.
Mm-hmm. And here's a little bit more perspective on the situation. And I'm going to pull this up simply because I think it's better to show and not tell. Show and tell, I should say. I love that we can just pull up stuff right here and just bring it on into perspective. So for anyone out there who was watching and maybe a little bit confused about this whole situation between Whitney and Angie and Lisa and what restaurant we're talking about. So the caterers who were supposed to be catering for Angie's event were friends of Lisa's. Now, with this, as Adam stated, plenty of times as you are filming a reality show, you sometimes have to determine how best to organize an event. And a lot of times you can tell a company or maybe a service, hey, you're going to be featured on the show. We'll make sure to give you a byline or a credit or something like that just for your participation on the show. Because, a lot of times some people can be cheap and don't want to pay. So they can say it. I'm not saying that Angie was. I'm just saying that that's sometimes the case. It sounds like it might have been the case in this situation because basically they are saying that she was trying to get it for free. Now, for free and for television exposure. So what had happened was Aubrey and Marco, that's the catering company. Basically, bottom line, it boiled down into a situation where they were also opening a restaurant. And so I think that's the case. They were opening. Am I right about that or wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, they are opening a restaurant, and they really wanted to not focus as much on the catering because apparently they had done that before, and they weren't given any credit on TV when it actually came time to air. So I believe what was happening was Lisa was trying to work to maybe, you guys are my people. I want to make sure you guys are featured. So let's go to your restaurant where they will typically always show the marquee when you walk in the door, and now you guys can get the type of credit that you want. So I believe that's why they pulled out of Angie's event, and they weren't being paid for it anyway, allegedly. So it's like, we want to focus on our restaurant, and Lisa's going to be able to get us that exposure. This event isn't going to get us an exposure, so it's not going to benefit us to spend all of this money and shell it out for free so that we don't end up getting any exposure at all. So now we have Lisa and Whitney potentially sitting down next week in what could be Aubrey and Marco's restaurant to actually get them that exposure that they are looking for.
Wow. That was a lot. I feel like you just took me on a Ramona coaster, but I do. That was a lot. That was a lot of investigative work here that they've done. Obviously, at least for us, it kind of helps us connect the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I'm sticking with that. I agree with you. I think this would probably be the caterer's restaurant. And this is actually going to be really funny. So I'm ready for this one.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting following these breadcrumbs on Salt Lake City because I love getting the behind. Like you, I think you seem to enjoy as much as I do the production aspects of these shows as well, because I think it just kind of informs how or what we see, I guess, in the final edit of the show.
Right. No, I agree with you. And it's so crazy because looking back before I went to school, like college or anything like that, I used to love watching these reality shows and thinking in my head, oh, this is real. This is a fantasy. I want to be like on Laguna Beach and stuff like this. And now kind of seeing it firsthand, you're like, oh, wait, this is what happened. You're a fraud. This is a lie storyline. And I love kind of like spotting them out and figuring out what's real and what's not.
EHC Bunny says the business selected the deal with the best promotional value for them. Bottom line, succinctly stated. That's what I think happened. Adam, anything you're looking forward to with this show coming up or anything else? Because to me, this episode was kind of weak.
Yeah, this episode was weak. No, I think that we just need to get to the big scandal of it all, right? Because that's why everyone's watching. That's how we started off our first episode. That's what the whole trailer was about. And unfortunately, I wouldn't wish this scandal on anyone, but right now they're kind of painting they're painting Jen Shah as this like mastermind ringleader of this whole alleged scam, right? And I'm curious. I want to see how this played out because we all reported on it. We all read about it. We were trying to figure out what was happening. We all freaked out when we got the actual video proof footage of it happening. Now it's time to get there. We're in it 5 episodes. Like, let's go. Just like we were done with the Brooks Mark stuff. Let's go. We need to see Shah arrested.
Honestly, I don't think we're going to get it until probably around episode 7 or 8. And then it's going to be the mid-season trailer. And then the back half of the season is going to be mostly focused on the Jen Shah stuff. and then that's going to kind of be that. That's what I am assuming based on the pacing of these episodes right now.
I think you're right, and I think that's unfortunate. Just like it's unfortunate that OC is replacing New Jersey on their date and time slot. But I think you're right.
Okay, what's the deal with that really quick before we go? Because I just need to know.
I think what happened here was Real Housewives of Orange County had the lowest rated season ever for 15. Now, was it COVID? Was it lack of storylines? What was it? We don't know. But I think they're trying so hard, since that was the flagship franchise, to push it back up there and get the ratings restored. Like reason why they brought Heather Dubrow back and a few other things going on. But I also believe they were trying to ride off of the heels of Beverly Hills' amazing ratings and be like, okay, let's stick this in December 1st. People are still excited. They're getting Beverly Hills. During November, they'll get the Jen Shaw legal scandal. And then boom, here comes Orange County. And I think they're trying to use this as a marketing ploy, I guess. But I hate it. I want to see Jersey. And by the time we see Jersey, we know they already wrapped up filming like 3-4 months ago, something like that, that it's going to be so old and stale that we're not even going to care.
Mm-hmm. I would have actually preferred Jersey first anyway, and then give us OC in the spring.
Yeah.
That's just me though, and we'll just have to follow the Bravo train and just take what they can give us, because I don't know what we're gonna do after Potomac and Beverly Hills is gone. I'm distraught about it.
Yeah. These two really killed it for us, and we heard Atlanta just started filming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Atlanta just started filming, so we'll probably get them like March, April, and they better come out. Something has to come out that's good, because I hope they're not thinking that Vanderpump Rules is going to fill this spot, because Vanderpump Rules this season is a dud. But I was hopeful, but it's a dud.
Yeah, I haven't even watched that one yet. I don't know. They're going to need to do something, because I think that the slate is going. I mean, unless they know that OC is just wild and amazing, then I'm not too confident about it.
Well, and the thing is too is like Orange County is still filming. They haven't even had their finale yet. So again, back to the timeline, Jersey, they're not filming anymore. I don't.
They're done.
Yeah, they've been done. Wait, who's done?
Jersey, right?
Yeah, Jersey's been done. And then Orange County, they should be like wrapping up this month. But I don't get why they did the timeline. And if they did that, since we're losing Beverly Hills and Potomac kind of around the same time, like just a month apart, they should launch Orange County and New Jersey a month apart.
Yeah. Well, we will have to wait and see. Adam, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on my channel, Up and Adam. There's a lot happening. And tonight we're doing another round, Monday through Friday, of today's hot, messy topics. And tonight we have a lot to talk about. So it's a subscribers only live chat. If you guys want to call in, join the conversation. Richie, I would ask you to come by sometime, but I know how hard you're working too. So eventually I'll have to steal you over for like a good 15-minute pop-up and get everybody excited.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, as soon as Potomac ends or something like that, I'm free. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm free. But these Sundays, they have me mentally exhausted. Oh, and if it's not a Monday, I'm down. Just let me know.
Okay. I'll definitely shoot you a message. But yeah, they Sundays, it's interesting that they do it back-to-back, Potomac and Salt Lake City. And I think they try to do that, another ratings ploy. But it's like, if they space it out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, gave us a show every night of the week, I'd be good with that. I would
so be good with that, honestly. It's just too much. It's too much. And
if it's a bad episode like tonight, it makes you not enjoy it, because you're like, I have to sit here and watch it anyways.
Yes, especially after Potomac has just delivered an amazing episode. And then you're kind of like, now, wait a minute. If you're not going to take me higher, I could be doing something else. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's your boy DJ Richie Skye. It's Adam from Up and Adam. Adam, before we go, tell them that they can watch Jason as well.
Oh yeah. So Jason's been kind of doing his thing. Trying to figure out exactly what he's looking into on YouTube. So he's covering Bravo, but he's so fascinated with the Royals. And there's such a small, like, niche group of people who follow and cover the royal drama. And I didn't realize how many people were interested in it. But if you go to page 6 or Us Weekly all of these different major publications, they all have a Royals tab, and I feel like I'm left behind. But yeah, you guys can go follow him on Down with Jason. And then we have an exciting interview coming this week. So it's one of the Housewives of Beverly Hills. I'm excited about that. We have stuff coming up.
I hope it's Garcelle or Sutton. That's all I'm going to say. And I don't even know who it is, y'all. So get excited. And Adam, promote that when it comes out. Shoot me a little Instagram thing and I'll promote it as well.
Hey, thanks.
And you guys will be able to know exactly what he's doing if you're following and subscribing to his channel as well. So with that being said, guys, we will catch you in the next review. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.